Greetings, awesomes. How's everybody doing? Hope you've had a good weekend. We are on week 11. We're moving right along. Made a few changes to the schedule for this week. Some things we're going to focus on. I believe, with the exception of maybe one or two, I think I have most of the Project 3 literature reviews graded and commented on. So please do take time to look at that feedback. The feedback becomes very important because you will want to take some of those ideas that I've given you and think about revising those, because our literature reviews show up again in our Project 4, which is good because Project 4 is 10 to 15 pages and your literature review should be about 8 to 10 of those pages. So we've done the hard part. Literature review is a tough paper to write, but it really provides the scaffolding. It provides the foundation for then what you're going to do for Project 4. We're going to talk a little bit about that right now. So, okay, so let's skedaddle forward here. And I'm going to minimize myself here. All right, so here's week 11. So this week, we're going to develop our research methodology and begin revising our literature review. And we're also going to look to this outline to help us think about how this is going to be put together. So watch the week 11 video. You're doing it right now, at least the first one. There might be a secondary one later in the week, you never know. Wordsworth Guide, a couple of chapters there for developing an argument, selecting and integrating evidence. Some of this I think is a review. I think we've looked at some of these. More importantly, I want you to look at Project 4 Research Proposal Outline, which we're going to look at in a second, as well as the student samples, and I want you to specifically look at the methodology section, because that's what we're going to kind of develop this week. And so Blog 8 is more specific for Project 4 this week, where I want you to kind of outline or tell me what you're going to do for your methodology section, okay? And then revise your literature review for incorporation into your Project 4, again, based on the evidence, based on the feedback that I provided you this week. Okay, so here's the link down here for Blog 8. Do Sunday night, and then we have the research proposal outline, and I brought in the student samples right in here for your convenience for this week. So let's take a look real quick over here at the, this is the Project 4 research proposal outline. All right, so the new things we're going to do for Project 4 are going to be, we'll have perhaps a different introduction than specifically for the literature review, where our introduction now is going to introduce the entire proposal. So we're going to have a methodology section as well as a discussion section. All right, so our introduction might want to forecast and look at some of those things, or for those of you doing APA, perhaps your abstract would change a little bit. Then we have section 2, which is the literature review itself, which you've just written, and now you're revising based on the feedback that I gave you this past weekend or yesterday. Okay, so we'll do those kind of things. And something to kind of keep in mind about your literature review is your literature review in of itself has an introduction and a conclusion, perhaps. And your introduction to your literature review will probably by and large not use that in this, because your introduction will serve to introduce your whole project, in which you then have a literature review section, your methodology section, and then your discussion section. Okay? So when you're revising your literature review, think about using concepts that I may have pointed out in your introduction. That should be then germane to the introduction of your entire thing. Okay, so your introduction to the literature review was not in vain. You could definitely use that as a starting point for your introduction for your entire Project 4. Okay, so don't delete it. We're just going to move it up. It's going to be the introduction to for your entire paper, and then we're going to add to it to include methodology as well as discussion. So keep those things in mind as you're writing. The most important part as well this week in revising your literature review, and the thing we need to think about is the methodology. And so from the assignment prompt, it says you will draw upon already gathered research materials in order to propose a mock methodology, or hypothetical, I think I've called it, for addressing your research problem, the gap in the literature, the gap in the research that you found. The proposal must be at least semi-realistic and include a methodology appropriate to your discourse community. That's why by and large you'll probably borrow and just utilize the design of a previous research that's been done. I'm not asking you to invent one from scratch, okay? And must indicate how you would implement your methodology using discipline-specific methods. There again, you've already got some of this information, okay? Okay, this is all from the rubric. Draws upon cites previous secondary research to discuss a common disciplinary research approach and proposes a validated method for addressing the specific research objective questions. There again, you've got that already in that's where your literature review provides you a lot of that stuff. We don't have to go back to the drawing board. And then just for looking forward, you have your section 4, which will be your discussion, and this is where you develop a discussion based on the things you've just learned and what you think that your methods and methodologies perhaps would yield or glean for you. And then we will talk about validations, significance, limitations, assumptions about the entire proposal. And we're going to talk about that more next week. We're going to focus mainly this week on revising our literature review, getting it prepared to insert into Project 4, and then we want to come up with a design for Project 4 for the methodology specifically, okay? So I pulled up a few of the student samples, okay, that I've posted for this week, and I've asked you to specifically look and note and read the methodology section. Okay, so we're just finished the literature review section for, I believe this is student sample 2. And so he comes in and says, the purpose of the research proposal is to identify the prevalence of workplace bullying in nursing. This will be done through the development of a cross-sectional survey study. So he's identified in the cross-sectional survey study, he is using and borrowing from another cross-sectional survey that he found in his literature review. A sample of, and then he gets specifics, a sample of 400 registered nurses working in the hospital setting in Windsor will be used. So he's told us exactly how many, and he's going to use these particular individuals, how he's going to set it up, okay? No bias, ethnicity, race are important, or experience in the sample. A link will be sent through a company newsletter. Here's how it's all going to be done, right? This is the meat and potatoes. He's not coming up with anything original, except for he's decided 400 people. He's decided on Windsor Regional Hospital and the kind of questions that he's going to ask. Now he's going to talk about the measurement. Bullying will be measured using Hole and Cooper's 2000 single item measure. Remember earlier we just looked at over here. I'll go back to the methodology section for the outline. You will draw upon your already gathered research materials appropriate to your DC, right? You will cite previous secondary research to discuss common disciplinary research approaches. Okay, so he is bringing in, right over here, he's going to use Hole and Cooper's 2000 single item measure. So he's bringing in secondary research, he's bringing in stuff he already knows, combining it together with this is what he is doing. Okay, so he defines that along with this definition as a 6-point rating scale. The rating scale are as follows, blah, blah, blah. To allow for better representation of the participants, the survey will include demographic questions. So he's added these things in to kind of make his study perhaps a little different because he's identified a specific gap in where he is trying to fill. And then he will move into his discussion. So by and large, the methodology section is not huge, right? It looks like it's maybe a page and a half. There are 3 or 4 paragraphs. As long as it's thorough and addresses all the necessary things that you need. So let's look at the other sample I pulled up here. So again, here's the methods. And never to establish permanency. Her entire thing is about permanency within the American foster care system. So that has been her identified gap in the literature. Nobody is addressing permanency. And how might other ways we can address permanency? Through her study. And so she's addressing specifically right here individuals that are in limbo, children that are in limbo more specifically. And so she says it's going to be an observational study conducted together toward achieving permanency. 10 major cities, 50 cases per city, N equals 500. She's drawing upon previous literature in her discourse community to put together this study. And here's how she's going to go through it. Here's how it's going to observe. Here's what the things that are going to happen. So I encourage you to read these to get an idea of what they're addressing in here. These are really good examples. Again, they're not super long. They're not super huge. The important thing is, and what makes the examples that I have posted here for you strong, is that it addresses very specifically what they put into the N equals 50 or the N equals 500, or what the data that they're gathering is specifically addressing the gap. Then in their discussion section, then they bring in what those things then are then going to do. While there might be limitations, while there might be other issues, the specific things that they're looking for here is at least helping to go towards filling that gap in their specific research. Okay, I hope that all makes sense. I hope that is semi-clear. So the main things you want to get done this week is start revising your literature review. If you have any questions about the feedback that I provided, please email me. I'm more than happy to answer those via email. I'm also very happy to meet with you on campus at any time that we can overlap our schedules together. So please do let me know that. Blog 8 this week. Think about your research proposal methodology. Based on what you've identified as your gap in your literature review and all the things that you've read so far, what kind of study then would you what kind of information, what kind of data would you need to go gather that would then go towards helping fill that gap? Okay, I know that sounds really, really simple. And by and large, once you've identified this gap, you can kind of think about how you might design a study to get what kind of information you need. So start working on those things. Look at the proposal outline here to help you think about what methods and methodology. Read these 3 student samples, especially in their methodology section. Get an idea of how they're putting their methods and methodology together, and I hope that you find that beneficial. So that's what's going on this week. Blog 8 due. I put myself back here in the middle. Again, if there's anything else that you need or anything else that I can do to help you, please do let me know. I wish you all a most awesome week. And if just holler if there's anything I can do. You guys did an amazing job with Project 3. I provided some good feedback. If you have any questions about that, again, just let me know. See you guys soon. Stay awesome.